Oliver Eikenberry.
Yep.
What's your name again?
Yeah.
3, 2.
Hey everyone, we're back here live at KubeCon. It's Tuesday afternoon. Getting a little punchy. We've been doing a lot of interviews today. They got popcorn and cupcakes out here. It was hard getting me back in this seat, I'll be honest with you. But nevertheless, if there was one person at this event who could get me back in the seat, it's my brother from another mother here, John Willis. John, welcome.
And you owe me $1, right?
And I owe you $1. I owe you $1. I tried to throw the bag in the garbage can. I shot it like I was from Indiana or somewhere and missed. Anyway, John,
Hey,
pleasure to have you
it's
on.
great to be here. It's been a little while since I've been on the.
It has been. It has been. You've been busy and running around.
But,
Let me introduce you to the man in the middle, though, playing the 5 spot. Just checking how much you know about basketball.
Yeah, I
man.
know.
All right.
So
Oliver Eikenberry.
yeah, so glad to be here. Glad to be able to come and talk to you guys. Oliver Eikenberry. I'm a principal architect with Liatrio. We're a small boutique consulting firm that specializes in DevOps transformations at large-scale enterprise organizations. We really focus in on building with, not for. So we come into an organization, we do value stream mapping sessions, we really get to understand the client and where their problems lie and what they're doing. And part of what I do and what I drive the most is I lead our platform engineering initiatives. So I'm really focused on how to build great platforms that support delivery for these organizations and really leaving them in a better spot so they can continue forward faster and on their journey to provide value for their customers.
I love it. Let's do a little digging here, though, Oliver. That was a great segment, but we got to, put it into chunks that people are going to grab. Let's start with the name of the company.
So Liatrio, so there's this flower called the Liatrius flower. And Chris Blackburn, our CEO, when he was founding the company, he saw that flower. He kind of liked that name. It grows in the desert. It grows in a lot of different places. It's a very beautiful flower. But he also wanted the .io domain name. So the Liatrius flower, Liatrio.io, and that's kind of where the convergence of the name came from when he formed the company.
Very cool.
And
So
it also
Liatro.io or Liat.io?
we own multiple domain names, but that was kind of the synthesis of the Liat.io, so Liatrio, on a play on name. And the common name for the Liatrius flower is Blazing Star, and we are blazing stars and really drive and shine a light on a lot of things that we do with the organizations that we work with. So
you're telling me the company's founded on flower power?
yeah.
you might say that, but yeah.
I love it. It's a lucky thing you got both domains because the .io is supposed to be going away, right?
Yeah.
Thank God you did.
We've had that for probably 10 plus years at this point.
Yeah?
So
Very cool. So we mentioned the domain name. We mentioned what you do. I just want to make sure we get our housekeeping out of the way. John, you haven't been on in a while. Give people a quick update on you.
Yeah, so I finished a book that I worked on for 2 years. It's called Rebels of Reason. It's the history of AI. If most of you, I wrote a book about Dr. Deming. I've found this rhythm of telling stories like historical IT, but taking complex subjects so that everybody can sort of understand them. And I finished that. It's been out almost a year now. And right now I'm fascinated with quantum computing and how that's going to invade, probably not until at least 5 years, but I think now's the time to start preparing.
Your day is coming.
But speaking of Liatrio, I've known Chris Blackburn from the earliest DevOps days. Him and Damon Edwards worked together.
Yep.
Okay.
So when Damon was moving away from moving more into product and moving his very successful consulting business, he partnered with Chris, and a lot of that stuff that Damon had built on some of the best value stream mapping stuff that's ever been out there, Chris took that over. And I've just watched Chris over the years build a culture, and in all transparency, I am working as a consultant, helping some of their sales team right now. But I've been a fan of Chris's, what he's built, because the truth is, regardless of whether I'm getting paid or not, they've been always doing DevOps the right way from the beginning. And I think what's fascinating now is, as we're seeing everybody want to do AI native and how I do that, those principles are more important than ever. And again, that's why I've like sort of decided I want to do some work with them, because I think it's fascinating to use those principles that we know work, we've all been sort of talking about for 15 years, and stay away from the people who are just going right into AI and using none of the things we've learned over the last 15 years. So yeah, that's sort of my story around why we're
Good.
here, or I'm here.
Excellent. All right. So guys, let's dive into it though, right? Just when we thought we were getting our arms around DevOps, right? It's real. We know how to turn the dials. We know what dials to turn, or we think we do. You know, we got to the top of the mountain, and hopefully it's a little bit more of an easy sail now. This AI thing comes along,
Yeah.
right? It's the theory of constraints in real life for us. And everything you thought, let's throw the cards back up in the air and see where they land this time. Oh, and let's mix in a little platform engineering, some cloud native. Hey, maybe even we'll talk about a little quantum down the road. You ain't seen nothing yet, right? Basically, we haven't solved nothing. Oliver. Well, in one way, I guess it's what gets you up in the morning, saying, hey, I got a fresh mountain to climb.
Right.
On the other hand, there got to be days where you say, geez, does it ever get easier?
Yeah, it's both of those, because I mean I've been pretty focused on platform engineering in that space for the last 2 to 3 years, owning and driving that, figuring out how to really drive how that connects to DevOps, because a lot of people say DevOps is dead, platform engineering is the new DevOps, and that's where the principle of, and Leatrio really drives this, DevOps is a culture, it's a philosophy, it's not a thing.
And it always was.
DevOps,
Let's be clear. Right.
At its purest point. And so I get up and I look at what's new in the platform space, and all of a sudden there's this new thing with AI over here that's going to solve all my problems. But I look at that and I go, well, that's just actually, the foundations of a platform still exist. I still need a place to run all those agents, run MCPs, and interact with all the existing systems that exist today and manage those. So now I get up and I go, oh, how does AI inflect and change in the space? And we have a whole team that's run by Robert Kelly, our VP of Innovation at Leatrio, now that is an innovation team. They are focused on what the next thing looks like in the space around agentic development and how to get that and transform organizations in that flow. And the struggle I have is it is too much. AI moves so fast at this point that you can't just go buy a tool or subscribe to any one LLM or other area and say, that's it, I can stay there. It moves too quickly now. So the struggle I have and the pain is like, you have to keep up. It's a constant like hamster wheel effect now.
It is.
In that space.
The problem is you can burn out on a hamster wheel.
Hey,
Yes.
I wanted to make a point that, why the fundamentals matter, right? And today's keynote, the guy from OpenAI, great story. So this is OpenAI, and he talks about how they're logging. He did some performance review. So you think about all the stuff that has to happen to get us ChatGPT and GPT-5 and all that stuff. They have to log. They have metrics all over the place. Of course they have that, right? And he talks about how they evolved into that. But then he shows this, and I think the presentation lies how one line of code is saying 50% CPU utilization across the board. And basically what he found, going back to the fundamentals are always going to be here no matter what we build with AI. He found through basically some perf tools that there's a library in one of the new, Fluent, BitFluent or whatever, that was doing an fstat, just a basic, C library fstat to get metrics from a file to log that was happening in an iNotify routine as part of the kernel. And he literally made an open source change that he could toggle that fstat, and he saved 50% CPU utilization across all OpenAI. This is why. So as we're talking about AI native,
CPU or GPU?
No,
or both?
CPU. But as we're talking about open, Claude Code and all this stuff, it's all fascinating, but the fundamentals are never going away. And that's a case in point where like 50% utilization at OpenAI is solved by a true understanding infrastructure IO at all levels.
Right.
So let me talk fundamentals. Fundamentally, if it's costing you $1 for every 20 cents I give you, you got a fundamental problem here. And I think that's to a certain extent where we are with this AI. There's a lot of platform engineers and a lot of DevOps folks and a lot of developers who are saying, ain't this grand? Ain't this grand? Until they get that first bill for tokens,
Yeah.
Right.
token usage and so forth, right? I think I'm not anti-AI. I use AI more than most people, I bet. But I don't know if we have industrialized, I guess is a good word, industrialized its usage at scale in a sustainable, and I'm not talking about energy,
Right.
sustainable from a business point of view manner. And you know what, Oliver, you're fighting the fight on the front lines of this, right? You're like a firefighter in California here, but is it a wildfire or is it something we can get a hold on?
I think we're seeing emerging trends and patterns with like Claude Flow and some of these things that are really enabling an individual engineer to have multiple agents go do things and help them do things faster, produce things that they can review faster. So we're seeing that acceleration at the local engineer level. All the tooling is very focused to that. But we're starting to see emerging pockets and parts in the market now, like at GitHub Universe just a few weeks ago, where they announced,
Sure.
oh, I can run my agents in GitHub space and they'll manage those agents for me. Where in order to really unlock and go from 10xing an engineer to 10xing an entire organization to really get to that value you're talking about from a business perspective, we have to figure out how to give the engineers the ability to use these new tools in a shared way, because AI is context windows, figuring out the context, parsing what you need to do to get the right results out of it, because it's undeterministic in a lot of cases. So as we figure out how do we scale that and say, oh, this agent is really good at producing these things in this organization, and it's referencing what I've already built as a fundamental in my organization, and how do engineers, are they able to share using that, spin it up in a collective way, versus having to only do it at the level of their machine and what's going on.
Right.
So we're seeing emerging things, and that market's moving that direction, but it's still so open as to what you can do and how you can figure out how to do it.
Well,
and what's
it's
going
Wild
on.
West, and
It's very wild and open.
We're still creating the maps, if you will, before sailing the ocean.
There was at DevOps Days Dallas. There was a gentleman from I think one of the car like EDS or whatever sort of.
One of the third-party partners.
Yeah, that's right. And he was talking about economics of token, not just sort of token costs and tracking that, but we're starting to see what's happening is FinOps is getting involved.
Yeah.
And FinOps is sort of mandating like, don't explain it to me. You just need to explain these costs. And so I think like everything we do, you're right. It's very dangerous. The token cost can get like scary really fast. But we saw some of this in cloud. Like everybody raced out to the cloud, and then we figured out some cloud economics.
Efficiencies.
Right.
Efficiencies.
And we sort of.
And that's by the way, that's not a technology thing.
That's
you
right.
look at any innovation, first you do the innovation, then you figure out the efficiencies of it, right?
That's right.
When you look at Big Pharma, when they do experiments on new drugs, first they figure out, does it work? Then they figure out how much is it going to cost, and how do we optimize its efficiency? And I think that's where we are in this. Let me bring up another fundamental for you, and it's really important to every single person in booth here at this event. At the end of the day, is it about using AI to make our platforms better, to make Kubernetes better, to make observability better, to make DevOps better? Or is it, in order to use AI, we've got to reinvent all of those things I just told you. Platforms, we need platforms that are optimized for AI inference and or training. We need Kubernetes isn't going to be the orchestrator for AI applications. We need something, call it native AI, that is going to orchestrate my AI stack. Because is AI going to create a new stack that renders everything you see here obsolete? Or do we make this stuff the stack for AI? What do you think, Oliver?
I think it's both. I think is there a whole new stack for AI? We don't know yet. That is an undiscovered country that I think all of these engineers that are like really playing with this and pushing the limits and boundaries of what AI can do, they will figure that out. That will emerge on its own as it happens in the space. And likely we won't see it till it happens. In terms of like runtime for AI, when you talk about that, like there's a huge push into using Kubernetes to run AI and ML workloads.
That's right.
But are we pushing rope up the hill on that?
Maybe. There's other organizations that are spinning up entire data centers just for GPUs. So they're data centers that are just
$3 trillion worth
GPUs to then enable people to run that. And they're building declarative Kubernetes stacks on top of that. I honestly still go back to even the lower fundamental of that, of how compute works. Kubernetes is great for scale. If you don't need that scale, what do you use it for, and how do we look at? So it's a kind of a non-answer, but I think we have to look at both perspectives and be prepared to shift one way or the other and what's right. Because really what AI is doing is it's giving us the ability to build larger shared context, put more information into the system, and build bigger, better things and solve bigger problems. And so that platform will emerge. But in order to do some of the stuff in the experiments, we have to provide a space for people to even try those experiments. So that's where when we look at what organizations that are getting into AI, they're like, well, which tools should we buy? And we're like, give everybody access to all of them. Don't sign a 3-year agreement with ChatGPT. Sign a 6-month agreement. Give them access to the different tools, because everybody's workflow is different. And that's the unique part of this change, is that you can't really put it in a box. It's too dynamic at this point.
All right. I think that I love that question, Alan, because we were just on a Tech Field Day podcast and we had a good debate about this. And, there's sort of there's two ways to think about it. One is we can look at the proof that OpenAI and Anthropic are all running Kubernetes to run the largest infrastructure. And I'm certain Google does too, right? For Gemini. So that kind of tells you that maybe the hammer and nail is never going to change. But the beauty now is companies can step back and do things they've never been able to think about doing. And because the cost of writing your own has always been the maintenance of it. But now the same things that are solving that I can do things in a week that normally took teams 6 months to do, it's the same acceleration for maintenance and update. So I think there's an opportunity to organizations. One other story I've heard a few times is some of these larger organizations, instead of sort of getting rid of some of their classic developers, are looking at some of these big ticket ELAs, like not saying Workday specifically, but like, could we rewrite Workday? Could we rewrite Workday for us and build it specifically so it works for our organization? And some of those are like, let's try, right? So I think there is a world where somebody might look at Kubernetes and say, you know what? We've been forcing ourselves down this thing. Let's prototype an alternative. And by the way, there have been some good alternatives that have died, not because of technology, but because marketing. Nomad from HashiCorp
was too syndrome.
Well, but even in the platform space, Swarm from Docker and Nomad, those were perfectly legit, solve 80% of the problems that went away for non-technology reasons.
Yeah. Well, the other thing is that a lot of these AI tools make using Kubernetes easier. Because Kubernetes is, everybody can say Kubernetes is easy, but then you get an SRE, stand up next to them, Kubernetes is not easy. Type of scenario. So that's the other thing. That's a good point. These tools give you the better shared context of how to work with that thing. Yeah. So I get to your point, John, they don't have to worry about managing Kubernetes. Yeah. They're more worried about building their app and their workload, and then they start to question, oh, do I need this SaaS tool, or can I build it to the specification of what I need? So it kind of comes back to software's eating the world. It's going to eat the world even more, because we're going to have more people building software with AI.
And the double down on that is that, as I think about listening to all the keynotes at KubeCon today, right? Like I get tainted, like, oh, Kubernetes, come to KubeCon, watch people, thousands of people march around learning how to build Helm charts. But to your point, and the point that they were making in the keynote is, like, all the contributors are now using accelerated AI. Mm-hmm. So maybe at the end of the day, we don't have to build Kubernetes, because it gets built through an evolutionary role that, like, we're getting better at delivering a better platform based on CNCF or
Right.
Cloud Native or Kubernetes.
Ideally, a platform is just removing a layer, context load from all the engineers, so they have a place
Yeah.
to build their apps that they're creating. So you want to remove that context load, so AI just continues to layer in the ability to bring that context out and further out for them to work with. So
You know what? It's going to be interesting times, that's for sure, as this plays out.
definitely,
You're right in the middle of it.
absolutely,
Yeah.
every day, new articles. My feed gets filled every day. I have an entire separate profile in my browser now that's just AI that all those things go to, and it just stacks up for me to go
You're
read.
not using an AI browser that does this for you?
I've played with
Summarize
the
it?
AI. I've tried using that, but part of the consumption of information for me is I want the details to a degree.
Yeah.
And so I do AI summaries. I've used AI to do deep research on large, complex projects that would have taken me teams of people months to do, down to a few weeks and things like that. So it's about a balance and figuring out the right place to use the tool to build that content.
It's funny on the AI thing. There's a couple of newsletters I subscribe to, and I was using AI completely to do summary. And then one day I went back and I looked, and I was like, I looked back on what I'd been doing, and it was missing stuff all over the place. And so I reverted now to reading the article, reading the sort of newsletter summary. To his point, like, yes, the summarization is awesome. Like, take a research paper. For me, I'll take a research paper and I'll put it in there and say, let me know if I need to read this.
Right.
But on things I actually want to know the details, I find myself falling back to less summary mode.
I love it.
Yeah.
Guys, we're about out of time.
Yeah.
Oliver, it's a pleasure meeting
Yeah,
you.
absolutely.
Indiana's a big basketball. I was
There
just,
you go. New York's okay too.
it was
Yeah.
the New Yorker in me that just, you say that, I'm going to tell you, look up to see how big that building is before I snatch your wallet. John, always a pleasure.
Good. Yeah, it's fun stuff.
We're live at KubeCon. We're not done yet today. Stay tuned. We got more.